So let's just jump right in here. I know it's Stanley Cup time, but I can straight up tell you, I've not done hardly a lot of NBA stuff on my channel in 2.5 years, maybe a handful with a couple fingers left over, but it's finals time. And for the NBA people, give you what you want. It's going to be the NBA finals that start on June 3rd, and it's going to be the New York Knicks versus not OKC. It's going to be the San Antonio Spurs. I said probably with the Stanley Cup, it's not a sexy finals. It's Vegas, it's Carolina. This is probably the one time where I will pretty much say the NBA finals are going to win the ratings against the Stanley Cup just for one reason, probably for two reasons, and it's two major ones. One, it's New York. Two, you get probably one of the top three players in the league, and he's only been in the league a couple years, and it's Victor Wembanyama. So there's your two reasons why they are going to win the ratings, just because of New York alone and San Antonio. So let's just start real quick. With the New York Knicks, they haven't won a championship since '73, and people are just wondering when that time is going to happen for New York. For those people, the bad boys, the front boys from Broadway, it's the Knicks. It's always been the Knicks. Patrick Ewing never won a ring, and all those great players that ever were a Knick never won a site. Carmelo Anthony never won a ring. So this could be that year. So real quick, how do we go by? Well, you go by what the Knicks did. They had that weird series with Atlanta until like Game 3, which they snapped. Then took out Atlanta, who actually Atlanta played better after they did the trade for getting rid of Trae Young. But then they went through that little scad whatever with the 76ers and the process and smoked them in 4. After that, Daryl Morey got fired as president of player operations. And then they go and they fight the Cleveland Cavaliers, not Detroit, but Cleveland wins 7 games with Detroit, even though Detroit is still young and they're in a rebuild. They were the number 1 seed. Cleveland and Donovan Mitchell and James Harden went to Game 7 and smoked Detroit on the road at Little Caesars. Detroit just laid an egg. They just never showed up. But then Cleveland goes and plays this Eastern Final with New York and gets beats 4 straight. It's unbelievable how much the Knicks have been a big influence, and now the Knicks will represent the Eastern Conference. How crazy, with all those boys on that team, from everybody from the Alpha, I think the Alpha's on the Jalen Brunson, and then you have Karl Anthony Towns, and then you have Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Anunoby, and there is a lot of like some. I mean, there's Landry Shamet is on there, Jordan Clarkson's on this team as well. But this is a team that can take over. Boston got beat. There's no alpha in the Eastern Conference. Boston's the one that got beat in the first round. And then you get Cleveland, and then you get possibly a handful of others that could step up. The Knicks were that team this year, and they will represent the East. Now you get the San Antonio Spurs and how they represented their run. Like they went through Portland in 5. They went 6 against the Timberwolves, and that ended up being a pretty good series. I mean, there's going to be a time Minnesota's going to break out, and Minnesota went 2 years in a row to the West Final. They just couldn't break through. And then an amazing 7-game series with OKC, and give credit where credit is due with Wembanyama, Wemby, and those young cats of San Antonio, with Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, and you remember Harrison Barnes is a veteran. He's on this team, along with Mason, a couple guys, Mason Plumlee, and remember De'Aaron Fox is on there. I keep forgetting on him. He was a Sacramento King, and Sacramento needs a miracle to finally be relevant again. And De'Aaron Fox is going to compete for a ring. That's pretty dope. And as all that, San Antonio is now in the Western Conference. They win the Western Conference final. But the big debate is with people need to realize the Western Conference is more loaded than the East. But OKC has the formula and all this draft capital with this young team built up. People were already penciling in OKC was going to be that big dynasty that was going to run the league for the next decade and a half. And San Antonio if you're very fortunate to win the draft lottery and win and take Wemby as your number one overall pick, along with Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper, those young people, those young shooters, San Antonio is now, we can say it, it's the Spurs and the Thunder neck and neck to try to take whoever takes the steering wheel for the Western Conference. I mean, it's still loaded because you still got the Lakers, the T-Wolves, Denver will always be good. Minnesota will always be there. And, Phoenix is on a rebuild. New Orleans is never there. But the West is so much more loaded. Golden State, we don't know if they're ever coming back. And the Clippers, we don't know if they're ever going to actually know how to run a team and actually run a team without just trying to spend money. But, their owner, Ballmer, he'll figure it out eventually. But we are going to get the Spurs and the Knicks. And the Spurs, are they going to be this next big dynasty? Not necessarily. I mean, they could. 5 championships, all mostly. Remember those old school days with Greg Popovich, David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. That was lifeblood in San Antonio. And 5 championships down the road, now they have a chance to win a 6th. And then you get New York, and I'll throw this thing about New York, and I'm going to shut it down. They're looking for their first championships in 73, but the city of New York definitely needs something. But I read something about what does New York need? I mean, they have championships, whatever, but last championship New York had was the Liberty, the WNBA in 2024, I believe. NYCFC of the MLS, Major League Soccer, won of the MLS Cup in 2021. I know I watched that game against Portland. And then you have a long stretch. The Yankees haven't won since 2009. The Mets haven't won since 86. The Rangers haven't won since 94. Since 94. The Islanders haven't had anything since their dynasty in the early 80s. The Devils haven't had since the beginning of 2000s. Brooklyn's never won one. New Jersey Nets went to one final and got destroyed by Kobe and Shaq and the Lakers that year. And the Jets haven't won since 67, and the Giants haven't won since they knocked off Brady. New York is due for a championship of majorly the Big Five. And if you count the Big Five, they haven't had one, since 2021, but that was the soccer, and they're building a new soccer pitch just outside Yankee Stadium down the road. But in the end of the day, we're talking probably, this will be one of the most interesting NBA finals. They will beat the Stanley Cup Finals in ratings, no doubt about it, just because New York is in it and just because Victor Wembanyama is in it. And add this to it, the Knicks won the season series 2-1. So think about this. I don't have a real thing. I will probably think about it. I don't have it could be a pick 'em, but the way San Antonio's played, I would probably, if you're a betting person, probably take the Spurs in 6, but it would not shock me the least if the Knicks pulled this off. And it would be nice to see the Knicks win the chip and make Stephen A. Smith very, very happy on First Take the next morning. Bars closed. Your take on the NBA Finals. I'm done talking about NBA. See you in the next one.